Nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody's coming to save you. The world doesn't stop because you're tired, sad, or scared. You either sit there and rot, or you stand up, take control, and do it anyway. Because if you don't do it for yourself, nobody will. People keep asking me how I stay motivated every single day, and the truth is, I don't. Motivation is the biggest lie people keep feeding themselves. They sit around waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel ready, waiting for that perfect rush of energy that will make them go to the gym, start the business, fix their lives. Let me break it to you. If you're waiting for motivation, you'll wait forever, because most days you won't feel like doing anything. You'll wake up tired, you'll wake up stressed, maybe broke, maybe heartbroken, maybe frustrated, and your brain will give you every reason to stay in bed. Motivation won't save you, discipline will. When I was broke, sitting in a tiny apartment in London, I didn't feel motivated. I was staring at overdue bills, eating the cheapest food I could find, and watching my bank account hit zero. Do you think I was motivated to grind? Do you think I woke up smiling, excited about the struggle? No. I was angry, I was frustrated, I was desperate. But I understood something important. Nobody was coming to save me. Nobody was going to knock on my door and hand me a better life. The world doesn't care if I was tired or stressed or broke. The world rewards action, not feelings. So even when I didn't want to, I forced myself to get up. I forced myself to work. I forced myself to push forward. That's discipline. There were nights I sat alone, broke, questioning everything. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel like a winner. I didn't feel like some champion. I felt weak, but I did it anyway. And that's what separates successful people from everybody else. You think the men at the top feel motivated every day. You think the strongest, toughest people on this planet always feel like fighting. No, they just don't let their feelings decide their actions. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Discipline stays. People tell me I'll start when I feel ready. You'll never feel ready. Stop lying to yourself. There were days I was exhausted from training, body broken, mind scattered, and I still forced myself back into the gym. There were times when I lost fights, when I got punched, when I was bleeding, and I still got back up and kept training. Do you think I was motivated? Do you think after losing, after getting hit, I felt like going again? No. But I knew if I quit once, if I let my emotions control me, I'd start building the habit of weakness. And once you build the habit of quitting, you'll do it for the rest of your life. Motivation is for amateurs. Discipline is for professionals. If you only work when you feel like it, you'll never get anywhere. The man who works when he's tired, when he's angry, when he's broke, when he's stressed, that man cannot be stopped because nothing controls him, nothing holds him back. He controls himself. That's power. When I was younger, I used to think success was about excitement, about passion, about that fire inside you every single day. But life taught me otherwise. Success is about grinding even when the fire is gone. Success is about dragging yourself through the mud, through boredom, through pain, through doubt, and refusing to give up. Because the truth is, life doesn't care how you feel. The gym doesn't care if you're tired. The business world doesn't care if you're depressed. Reality doesn't care about your excuses. And if you want to win, you can't afford to care either. I remember being completely broke, trying to figure out how to make money online. Every single day, I sat there, staring at the screen, mind racing, energy drained. Do you think I felt motivated to keep going after months of failure? No. But I kept going anyway, and that anyway is where all the difference is made. That anyway is the line between losers and winners. Most people quit when they don't feel like it. Champions keep going regardless. Understand this. Your feelings are irrelevant. Your feelings lie to you. They tell you you're too tired, too weak, too sad. They tell you tomorrow is a better day, but tomorrow is just another lie. Tomorrow never comes. If you can train yourself to act regardless of how you feel, you become unstoppable. If you only work when it's sunny, when you're happy, when you're rested, then life will break you the first time the storm hits. But if you learn to push through the storm, if you train yourself to get up and work no matter what, then you become a weapon. That's what discipline is. It's not about excitement, it's about control. It's about saying, I don't care how I feel, I don't care how hard it is, I don't care if I want to quit, I'm doing it anyway. That mindset will carry you when motivation dies. That mindset will drag you out of hell and put you where you belong. The truth is, I don't rely on motivation because I don't need it. I built myself to operate without it. I built myself to show up regardless. And that's why I win. That's why I get results. That's why nobody can stop me. You can break my body, you can test my patience, you can throw me into chaos, but I'll still do it anyway. And that's why I'll always come out on top. So the next time you tell yourself you're too tired, too stressed, too unmotivated, remember this. You don't need motivation, you need discipline, and if you master that, there's nothing in this world that can stop you. People walk around acting like the world owes them something. They think just because they've had a rough life, just because they've been through pain, that everyone else is supposed to slow down and feel sorry for them. Let me make it clear, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your problems, your sadness, your depression, your excuses. You can cry all day, you can complain about how unfair life is, and people will nod, maybe pretend to listen, maybe say, I understand. But the moment they walk away, they forget about you. Do you know why? Because they have their own battles to fight. They're too busy dealing with their own pain to carry yours. And that's the harsh truth you need to understand. If you don't fix your life, no one else will. When I was broke, when I couldn't afford proper food, when I was sitting in a flat with no money and no plan, do you think anyone came running to help me? No one. I had friends, I had family, but at the end of the day, everyone was focused on their own problems. I could have sat there crying, waiting for someone to rescue me, but nobody was coming. That realization hit me hard. I understood that the world isn't some caring mother, the world is cold. It doesn't stop spinning because you're struggling. And that's when I decided, I either sit there and drown, or I stand up and fight for myself. There were days when I had absolutely nothing. I remember counting coins, trying to figure out if I could buy food or pay a bill. I remember staring at my bank account with embarrassment. Nobody called me to say, don't worry, I'll handle it. Nobody bailed me out, and that was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because when you finally accept that nobody cares, you stop waiting for sympathy. You stop waiting for saviors. You stop expecting miracles. You become the only solution to your problems, and let me tell you, that's freedom. People who walk around expecting handouts, expecting pity, expecting life to feel sorry for them, those people stay weak forever. But the ones who look in the mirror and say, it's on me, it's always been on me, those are the ones who rise. You need to stop telling your sob story to everyone you meet. Stop broadcasting your pain to the world. Nobody is keeping score of how hard your life is. Nobody is handing out trophies for struggle. The only prize in this world goes to the ones who push through it, who get up and fight regardless of how heavy the burden is. When I was training as a fighter, there were nights I went to bed hungry. There were mornings I woke up bruised, exhausted, beaten down from sparring. Nobody cared. My coach didn't care if I was tired. My opponents didn't care if I was injured. The fight date was set, and I had to be ready, and guess what? That's how life is. Life doesn't stop because you're in pain. The bills still come. The deadlines still exist. The responsibilities don't disappear. You either rise to meet them, or you get crushed. I remember losing fights, walking out of the ring with a black eye, a swollen jaw, and the taste of blood in my mouth. I wanted to disappear. I wanted someone to pat me on the back and say, it's okay. But nobody cared. The crowd cheers the winner, not the loser, and I had to accept that reality. The only person who cared enough to fix it was me. And so, I went back to the gym, trained harder, refused to quit. That's why I eventually won. Not because someone felt sorry for me, but because I took responsibility for myself. You see, the problem with most people is they think someone out there cares enough to save them. They think if they cry loud enough, complain long enough, eventually, someone will swoop in and fix it. That's not how it works. The world respects strength, not weakness. People admire resilience, not self-pity. You can sit there and scream about how unfair everything is, or you can accept reality and fight back. I had to teach myself that my problems are mine alone, and instead of being bitter about that, I made it my weapon. Every struggle, every setback, every time I felt abandoned, I used it as fuel. I turned the fact that nobody cared into the reason I had to care more than anyone else. That's the mindset that changes lives. That's the mindset that builds winners. So the next time you want to cry about how hard things are, remember this: nobody cares. The world doesn't owe you sympathy, and nobody's coming to save you. That's not meant to break you, that's meant to free you. Because the moment you stop waiting for help, the moment you stop expecting pity, you start building yourself into the kind of person who doesn't need it. And that's when you finally win. People are obsessed with comfort. They want everything to feel easy, smooth, painless. They want success without sacrifice, rewards without struggle, and victories without scars. But that's not how life works. Growth has a price, and that price is pain. You don't get stronger by sitting in comfort. You don't build character by avoiding hardship. Every level you want to reach requires you to pay with discomfort, with exhaustion, with sacrifice. The people who run away from pain stay exactly where they are, while the ones who embrace it move forward. When I started training as a fighter, I learned this lesson the hard way. Every training session was brutal. I'd walk into the gym knowing I was about to get punched, kicked, thrown around, and pushed past my limit. My body ached constantly. My shins were bruised, my ribs hurt, my muscles screamed every single day. Do you think I enjoyed that? Do you think I was excited about feeling like my body was falling apart? Of course not. But that pain was the proof I was becoming someone stronger. Without it, I would have stayed weak, stayed average, stayed like everyone else. There were days when I could barely walk after sparring. My legs were so battered that even standing up felt like torture. I remember once limping home from training, barely able to climb the stairs, wondering if my body could even take it anymore. In that moment, I had a choice. I could quit, tell myself it was too much, go back to comfort, or I could accept the pain as part of the process, and I chose to embrace it. That's why I kept growing. That's why I became dangerous, because every bruise, every scar, every moment of exhaustion, it was the price I paid to build myself into someone unbreakable. The problem is, most people think pain is a signal to stop. They feel a little discomfort and immediately run the other way. They quit the workout when it starts to burn. They stop chasing their goals the moment it gets hard. They treat pain like an enemy, but pain is the test. Pain is life's way of asking, do you really want this? Are you willing to suffer for it? If you answer yes, if you push through it, you come out the other side a completely different person. When I was broke, struggling to figure out how to make money, there was pain too. Not physical pain, but the pain of watching the days pass with no results. The pain of working on something endlessly and seeing it fail. The pain of questioning myself, wondering if I was wasting my time, wondering if I was delusional. That mental pain crushed me harder than any punch in the gym, but I pushed through it. I sat with the frustration, I sat with the disappointment, and I kept working, and just like training, that pain became the fuel. It hardened me. It forced me to evolve. I remember nights where I sat there with nothing in my fridge, no idea how I was going to survive another month, but still working, still grinding, still refusing to quit. That pain was real, and it taught me something most people will never understand. If you can survive pain, you can survive anything, because pain is temporary, but what you build from it lasts forever. Pain is proof you're alive. Pain is proof you're moving. Comfort feels good, but it keeps you soft. Pain feels like hell, but it sharpens you like a blade. Every single scar on my body, every single moment of suffering, every single time I wanted to give up but didn't. That's what made me who I am. Without pain, I'd have nothing. Without pain, I'd still be weak, broke, and lost. People think success is about luxury, about money, about smiles and applause. No. Success is built in the dark, when no one is watching, when you're suffering and nobody cares, when you're pushing yourself through hell and the only reward you have is knowing you didn't quit. That's where strength is forged. That's where champions are made. I had to make peace with pain. I had to stop seeing it as punishment and start seeing it as the cost of entry. You want to be strong, pay the price. You want to be respected. Pay the price. You want freedom, wealth, power, discipline. Every single one of those things demands pain up front, and most people are too soft to pay it. That's why they never get anywhere. So when you feel pain, physical, emotional, mental, don't run. Don't think you're cursed. Don't think it's unfair. Understand that you're being given the chance to grow. You're being given the opportunity to prove you're worthy of the life you say you want, because everyone says they want success. Everyone says they want to be great. But when the pain comes, when the price shows up, they fold. I didn't fold, and that's why I won. I walked through fire, I bled, I suffered, I broke down, but I refused to quit. That's the difference, and that's why no matter how hard life hits me now, I know I'll get back up. I've already paid the price 1,000 times, and I'll keep paying it, because pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the path, so stop running from it, stop hiding from it, stop pretending you can avoid it, face it head on, embrace it, endure it, and come out stronger. Because pain is the only real currency in life, and if you're not willing to pay, you'll stay exactly where you are forever. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they're in competition with the entire world. They spend their lives staring at other people's lives, comparing, envying, measuring themselves against people they don't even know. Social media has poisoned minds. Everyone looks at someone richer, stronger, more successful, and they immediately feel small. They think they're behind, they think they're losing, but the truth is, the only real competition you have in this life is with yourself. If you wake up better than you were yesterday, you're winning. If you're stronger, sharper, tougher, more disciplined than the man you used to be, that's real progress. When I was younger, I used to fall into the same trap. I'd look around and see people with nicer cars, bigger houses, more money, and I'd get frustrated. I thought, why them? Why not me? That kind of thinking is poison, because instead of focusing on my own grind, I wasted energy comparing myself to someone else's finish line. You can't measure your day 1 against someone else's year 10. It destroys your confidence, and it distracts you from the only thing that matters, improving yourself. When I was broke, living in a small flat, eating cheap food, I saw guys driving sports cars and living in luxury. It burned me inside. At first, I thought life was unfair, but then I realized those men weren't my competition. My real competition was the broke version of me sitting in that flat. If I could outwork him out, discipline him, outgrow him, then eventually I'd reach the level I wanted. And that's exactly what I did. Day after day, I focused on beating the man I was yesterday. That's how I climbed out of the hole. It's not easy. There were days I felt useless, days I felt like I was going nowhere. I'd look in the mirror and hate what I saw, but instead of wishing I was someone else, I made a deal with myself. Every single day, I had to be better than the man in the mirror, even if it was just 1%. Even if it was just a little stronger, a little smarter, a little tougher, that became the mission. And slowly, I built myself into someone I respected. That's the key, respect. Too many people are busy trying to impress strangers while hating themselves. They want likes, they want validation, they want everyone else to think they're winning. But inside, they know they're lying. They know they haven't put in the work, and that's why they're miserable. Because the truth is, nothing feels better than beating your own weaknesses. Nothing feels better than looking at the man you were last year and realizing you've destroyed him. That's real victory. When I was fighting, this became even clearer. Every time I stepped into the ring, I wasn't just fighting my opponent. I was fighting the weaker version of myself. I was fighting the man who wanted to quit, the man who wanted to give up, the man who wanted to stay comfortable. My opponent could throw punches, but the real battle was inside me, and every time I pushed through, every time I refused to quit, I won. Even if I lost the fight, if I walked away knowing I'd beaten my own weakness, I was stronger than before. The problem is, most people don't want to face themselves. They want distractions. They want excuses. They want to blame the world, blame society, blame luck. But at the end of the day, when you're alone in your room, it's just you and the mirror. And that's the only person you have to beat. I remember nights sitting alone, broke, frustrated, thinking about giving up. No one was around to judge me. No one was around to push me. It was just me. And I had to ask myself, am I going to quit on myself again? Am I going to stay the same? Or am I going to rise? That's when it hit me. The competition wasn't outside. It was inside. If I could dominate myself, then eventually I'd dominate the world. And that's what I did. I stopped caring about what everyone else had. I stopped looking at their cars, their houses, their lifestyles. I focused on my grind. I focused on beating the man I was yesterday. And slowly, I built momentum. Slowly, I started winning, and now I can look back and laugh, because the people I used to envy aren't even in my league anymore. You need to understand this. Life isn't about being better than everyone else. It's about being better than yourself. If you can wake up every day and say, I'm stronger than I was yesterday, I'm more disciplined than I was last week, I'm tougher than I was last year, then you are unstoppable. Because no one can compete with a man who refuses to lose to himself. So stop comparing, stop scrolling, stop wasting energy looking at lives that aren't yours. Focus on your own path, fight your own demons. Beat the man in the mirror, because if you can win that battle, there's no limit to how far you can go. Excuses are the single biggest killer of dreams. People don't fail because they're weak, or because they don't have talent, or because life is unfair. People fail because they lie to themselves. They create excuses to protect their comfort. They dress up weakness with words like I'll start tomorrow, or I'm too tired, or I don't have the resources. Every excuse feels like a shield, but in reality, it's a chain that keeps you locked in the same miserable place forever. I know this because I used to make excuses too. There were days I'd wake up late, skip training, tell myself my body needed rest. I'd convince myself I'd work harder tomorrow, but tomorrow never came, and every time I gave myself an excuse, I became weaker. Every time I believed my own lies, I stole from my future. It took me years to realize that the world doesn't care about why you didn't show up. The world doesn't care about your reasons, only your results. When I was broke, excuses were the easiest option. I could sit there and say, I don't have money, I don't have connections, I don't have opportunities. All of it was true. But none of it mattered. Excuses are always true to some degree. Everyone has them. That's why they're useless. If I sat in that apartment telling myself I couldn't win because I was broke, I'd still be there today. Instead, I told myself the truth. I'm broke because I haven't done enough. I'm in this hole because of me, and the only way out is to stop lying, stop making excuses, and start acting. The hardest lies to cut through are the ones you tell yourself. I remember after losing fights, I'd blame the ref, I'd blame my preparation, I'd even blame bad luck. It was easier to protect my ego with excuses than to admit I wasn't good enough that night. But deep down, I knew the truth. I lost because I didn't train hard enough. I lost because I didn't push past my limits, and until I faced that, I couldn't grow. The moment I stopped excusing my losses and owned them, I became dangerous. Because once you stop lying to yourself, once you accept the full weight of responsibility, you realize you have the power to fix it. Excuses give you comfort in the short term, but they steal everything in the long term. They make you feel safe today, but they guarantee regret tomorrow. Think about how many times you've told yourself you'll start next week, you'll work harder later, you'll change when the timing is right. How many years have you wasted saying that? How many opportunities have you let die because you were busy protecting your feelings with excuses? I had to train myself to kill excuses on sight. When my brain told me I was too tired, I forced myself into the gym. When it told me I couldn't afford to try, I reminded myself I couldn't afford not to. When it told me tomorrow would be easier, I reminded myself tomorrow doesn't exist, only now does. That's how you win. By refusing to negotiate with weakness, refusing to give yourself a way out. People love to tell me, you don't understand, my situation is different. No, it's not. Everyone has problems. Everyone has disadvantages. Everyone has pain. But the difference between winners and losers isn't the size of their obstacles. It's how they respond. Losers build excuses. Winners build solutions. And I chose a long time ago which one I wanted to be. I remember nights when I had no money left, sitting in silence, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how badly I wanted a better life. My brain screamed at me to quit, to accept that maybe I wasn't meant for more. It whispered excuses to me like poison. Maybe you're just unlucky. Maybe you weren't born into the right circumstances. Maybe you should just be happy with what you have. And if I had listened to those excuses, I'd still be broke, still be forgotten, still be average. But I refused. I told myself, no one cares about your reasons. Either you win or you don't. Either you rise or you rot. That mindset is what carried me out of hell. Excuses feel good in the moment. They're soft, they're comfortable, but they are also the slowest form of suicide. They kill your potential piece by piece until one day you wake up old, bitter, and full of regret. And at that point, it's too late. That's why I tell people, cut them off now. Don't let another day be stolen by excuses. Don't lie to yourself. Don't negotiate with your weakness. I've seen men stronger than me, smarter than me, with more talent than me, waste their entire lives because they couldn't let go of excuses. They had every reason to win, but they kept telling themselves every reason to stay the same. And I've seen men with nothing, men with no advantages, crawl their way to the top because they refused to lie to themselves. That's the difference. That's the line between average and extraordinary. So understand this. The moment you stop making excuses is the moment your life truly begins. That's when you unlock your power. That's when you stop being a victim and start becoming the author of your story. Excuses kill dreams, action builds them, and if you want to win, you know exactly which side you need to choose. At the end of the day, everything you do has to be for yourself. Not for the crowd, not for applause, not for strangers online, because here's the truth. People are fickle. Today they'll cheer for you, tomorrow they'll tear you down. If you build your life on their validation, you'll live like a slave. That's why the most powerful thing you can ever do is take control of your life and do it for you. Because when you do it for yourself, nobody can take it away. When I was younger, I made the mistake of chasing validation. I wanted to prove myself to others. I wanted people to look at me and say, he's successful, he's strong, he's somebody. And for a while, I thought that was the fuel, but here's what I learned. It doesn't matter how many people clap for you if you don't respect the man you see in the mirror. I had moments where I looked successful on the outside, but inside, I knew I wasn't living to my fullest. That emptiness is what forced me to shift. I realized that no amount of external approval would ever fix internal weakness. When I was broke, nobody clapped, nobody cared, and when I started winning, suddenly everyone had an opinion. Some people congratulated me, others hated me, but none of it mattered. Because when I was sitting in that apartment with no money, no hope, no plan, I was the one who had to deal with my own reality. Nobody could carry that burden for me. And when I started winning, those same people weren't there in the gym, they weren't there during the sleepless nights, they weren't there when I wanted to quit but forced myself to keep going. That's when it clicked. This was always about me. It was always about building myself into someone I could respect, someone I could rely on. I've lived through both sides. I know what it feels like to have nothing, to feel invisible, to wonder if you'll ever climb out of the hole. And I know what it feels like to have money, to have status, to be seen as successful. But I'll tell you something. If you don't build yourself for yourself, neither side matters. When I had nothing, I had to look in the mirror and face the man who wasn't doing enough. When I had everything, I had to look in the mirror and ask if I still respected the man staring back. That mirror never lies, and if you want to feel powerful, you have to do it for you. Too many people are obsessed with the approval of others. They chase likes, they chase claps, they chase external validation. But the problem is, the world changes its opinion every single day. If you live for approval, you'll die the moment it disappears. That's why you can't live for them. You have to live for yourself. You have to make yourself the reason. You have to be proud of who you are when no one else is watching. Because that's the only thing that lasts. When I was fighting, I learned this the hard way. I'd win a fight and people would cheer. They'd call me a champion. I'd lose a fight and suddenly those same people would disappear. That's when I realized their voices didn't matter, because whether I won or lost, the only thing that mattered was whether I gave everything I had, whether I knew I didn't quit, whether I knew I respected myself. The outside noise is just that, noise. The inside voice is the only one you can't escape, and that's the one you have to impress. There were nights I sat alone with no money, no recognition, no validation. Nobody cared. Nobody even knew I existed, and in that silence I had to decide who I wanted to be, not for applause, not for fame, but for me. I had to build discipline for me. I had to suffer for me. I had to grow for me, because I knew if I didn't, I'd be stuck in the same cycle forever, and I refused to let that happen. That's the secret most people don't understand. You don't grind for the approval. You don't fight for the recognition. You grind because you refuse to accept being weak. You fight because you refuse to look in the mirror and see someone who quit. You do it because you demand more from yourself. And once you reach that point, you become unstoppable because external voices can't control you anymore. Whether they love you or hate you, you're unshaken because you know why you're doing it. That's freedom. That's power, to look in the mirror and know the man staring back is built, forged, disciplined, and unbreakable. Not for anyone else, but for yourself. That's the kind of power no one can give you and no one can take from you. So stop chasing validation, stop begging for applause, stop trying to prove yourself to people who don't even care. Do it anyway, do it when no one is watching, do it when nobody believes in you, do it because you refuse to quit on yourself. And when you finally stand there, stronger, sharper, untouchable, you'll realize that was the only reason that ever mattered. At the end of the day, no one's coming to save you, no one's clapping for you, and no one gives a damn if you win or lose, so do it anyway. Do it for yourself, because when the world turns its back, the only man you'll ever be stuck with is the one in the mirror. Make sure he's unbreakable.